Good evening, and welcome to AJP's Northeast Asia Market Close. The same global sell-off in artificial intelligence and chip stocks hit all three markets today, but each one sent the money somewhere completely different. Here is the through line for the session. A worldwide wobble in artificial intelligence and semiconductor names pressed on the big chip stocks across the region, and yet the three headline indexes finished almost flat. The real story is underneath the surface. In Korea, money fled the chip giants and poured into batteries and small caps, so the headline KOSPI slipped while the small cap KOSDAQ exploded higher. In China, investors ignored chips entirely and chased biotech and new drug names, many of them locking limit up. In Japan, there was nowhere to hide. On the index level, SoftBank dragged. But the chip equipment makers actually rose. One shock, three completely different escape routes. Korea rotated into batteries, China into biotech, and Japan simply churned. Where the money landed tells you far more today than where the indexes closed. The KOSPI closed at around 8,395, down about 0.1%. That barely negative number hides a violent split. The large cap KOSPI 200 fell roughly 1%, while the small cap KOSDAQ surged more than 8%, one of its biggest single-day jumps in memory. The engine was a historic foreign exodus. Overseas investors dumped a net 7.5 trillion, won in Korean shares, while domestic individuals and institutions stepped in to absorb almost all of it. This was a foreigners out, locals in session. The catalyst was political. President Lee Jae-myung unveiled the government's three mega projects: semiconductors, physical artificial intelligence, and data centers, with Samsung and SK pledging enormous regional investment. But the tape did the opposite of what you'd expect. Samsung Electronics, the headliner, fell nearly 4% to around 326,000 won, or about $211, a classic sell the news move. Instead, the policy cash chased the second derivative. LG Energy Solution rocketed nearly 20% to around 397,500 won, about $257, leading a battery and secondary sell stampede. And Samsung Electromechanics, a component supplier, rose about 2% to around 2,036,000 won, roughly $1,317. The parts and materials names catching the bid the mega caps couldn't hold. Shanghai went its own way, as it has all month. The Shanghai Composite closed at around 4,060, up more than 0.8%, but breadth was nearly even, with almost as many losers as winners. This was not a broad rally. It was a narrow, fevered rotation into one theme: biotech and innovative drugs. While Korea and Japan fought over chips, Chinese money piled into pharma. Whole corners of the new drug, contract research, weight loss, and antibody complex jumped 6 to 8%, and on the star market the leaders simply locked at their daily limit. Three names tell that story, and all three sit on the star market rather than the main board. These are the speculative leaders, not the index heavyweights. Sunshine Guojian, an antibody and recombinant protein maker, finished limited up at the daily ceiling of 20%, around 50 yuan. Biocytogen, an antibody platform company, also hit the 20% limit, near 111 yuan. And Thinkon Semiconductor jumped more than 18% to around 191 yuan on some of the heaviest turnover of the day. The message from Shanghai: when the global chip trade wobbles, China's traders rotate into their own domestic story and leave the mega caps alone. Japan was the market with nowhere obvious to run. The Nikkei 225 closed at around 69,260, essentially flat, edging up just over 0.1% after a choppy session. With no rotation engine like Korea's batteries or China's biotech, the index simply absorbed the chip fatigue selling and ground sideways. The single biggest drag was SoftBank Group, which fell more than 5% to around 5,894 yen, weighed down by the overhang around its artificial intelligence bets. But the chip equipment names split. which is why Japan didn't fall harder. Advantest, the chip tester, eased about 1.5% to around 31,950 yen. Yet, Tokyo Electron, the equipment giant, actually rose about 2.4% to around 74,700 yen. A reminder that even on a nervous day for artificial intelligence, parts of the supply chain held firm. The yen and the Bank of Japan stayed in the background, with sticky Tokyo inflation still keeping the next rate move on the table. So one sell-off, three different answers. Korea's headline fell, while its small caps soared on a wall of domestic buying and a wall of foreign selling. China quietly rallied on biotech while ignoring the chip drama entirely. Japan churned. The open question is which rotation lasts. If foreigners keep leaving Korea, can local money hold the line? And is the battery surge a genuine handoff from chips, or just one frantic session? Tomorrow's flows will tell us whether today was a turning point or a one-day stampede. That's your Northeast Asia close for today. We'll be back tomorrow to see whether the foreign exodus from Korea continues, and whether the battery and biotech trades have legs. If you find these briefings useful, please subscribe so you never miss one. Thank you for watching, AJP.